Welcome to Waters World. I'm Jesse Waters. Waking the sleeping giant. That's the subject of tonight's Waters Words. President Biden will not protect you. You're going to have to protect yourself. Biden has no solutions because he doesn't even understand the problem. He's never been a big thinker, and it's really starting to show. This week, he tried to spin the crime wave against the NRA. He's insulting all of our intelligence. All Joe knows is how people get shot.
Reduce gun violence, fewer guns, gun lobby, gun laws, gun violence, gun manufacturers, gun violence research, rogue gun dealers selling guns could own a gun.
Yes, we know criminals shoot people with guns, Joe. But why are shootings up? Why are homicides up? Biden's incapable of figuring that out. Or he's ignorant and just doesn't want to. The White House, up against the wall as the murder rate rises, was forced to come up with a plan to stop the violence. Here it is. You ready? 1, go after illegal gun dealers. And 2, spend more money on, quote, programs that work. Translation, they don't have a clue. Joe Biden spoke for 30 minutes and never said black on black crime. You can't solve the problem unless you say what the problem is. Biden never mentioned gangs, drugs, or families, never said a word about defund the police, bail reform, or soft district attorneys. The so-called compassionate president couldn't bring himself to articulate the painful loss that black American families are suffering from every single day. That anti-gun agenda is a dodge. New York City was awash with guns in the 90s when Rudy brought the crime rate down. Proactive policing was the key, along with tough sentences. You got to lock up the shooters. It's just that simple. For instance, in Illinois, illegal possession of a firearm calls for 3 to 7 years in prison. But shooters either get bailed out for nothing and skip, or DAs and judges go soft. All we have to do is enforce the law on the books. When the streets aren't safe, the citizens arm themselves because they don't trust the law to protect them. Citizens all over the country are losing trust in the people we put in positions of power. We don't want critical race theory taught to our kids. Why is that so hard to understand? White students aren't born racist, and black students aren't born victims. Parents in Loudoun County, Virginia, have had enough.
Western culture and values that brought forth Christianity in the founding documents are being called evil and racist.
I'm reminded of the tyranny of communist China, where your money is legally stolen and then used in government schools, not public schools. These are not public schools, these are government schools, like here, to indoctrinate children against their parents.
My child is not oppressed, and don't assume that. As long as you Marxists push your unconstitutional agenda on my child, she will not be returning back to Loudoun County schools.
Loudoun County, Virginia schools are teaching racism in the classroom. Reverse racism, whatever you want to call it. And they actually cut off parents from speaking up about it. That's when things got a little heated. Gutfeld nailed it on the 5. You're looking at the beginning of a new Tea Party movement. The left tried to get woke, but they woke a sleeping giant instead. The left wasn't ready for this kind of pushback, and they're lashing out.
We've seen a growing movement to reframe how American history is taught in public schools. Well, some parents who are opposed to critical race theory as new curriculum aren't too pleased.
Just because I do not want critical race theory taught to my children in school does not mean that I'm a racist, damn it.
Actually, it does. It's just another example of Republicans turning kids into a wedge issue, just like their politically motivated attacks on transgender youth who just want to play sports.
So all whites are racist. And if you reject that, that means you're a racist. Those are the rules they're operating under. You don't believe me? Here they are in their own words. A leading critical race theorist, Barbara Applebaum, makes no bones about what she's pushing. Quote, all white people are racist. Critical whiteness studies professor, whatever that means, Robin DiAngelo explains it this way. White identity is inherently racist. So schools are embracing this ideology and forcing white students and white teachers to be ashamed of their own skin color, among many other things. Here's the kind of teachers your children are being indoctrinated by. And right there should be fired on the spot. Not just for his haircut. I'd yank his license just so he never taught again. You're not supposed to train elementary school students to be political activists. Now, parents are begging school boards, can we please stick to English, math, science, and history? Especially after children were already left behind during the pandemic. But school boards across America, they just aren't listening. And they're doing it at their own peril. A grassroots movement is alive, and there's no stopping it. Joining me now to react, Senator Ted Cruz from the great state of Texas. Senator, thank you for joining Water's World.
Jesse, great to be with you.
Do you think that this anti-critical race theory kind of mirrors the Tea Party movement that we saw maybe a little over a decade ago? Because I'm seeing the same type of energy, political potency that I saw during that time period.
No, I think that's exactly right. I think it is waking a lot of people up. And the thing about it is the people who are realizing that this garbage is being taught in school, many of them are not people who have been politically active in the past. They've been living their lives, raising their kids, and suddenly they're finding out that their local school is teaching them that America is fundamentally racist, that all white people are racist, that every issue we have in America it is all about us fighting on racial lines, that whites and blacks hate each other and have to hate each other. And that's all a lie. That's all poison, and it's being poured into the minds of our kids. And I think a lot of moms, a lot of dads are really ticked off about it.
You're right. They've been now politically activated by this far left indoctrination, and they're not going to take it anymore. And you've now put forth a bill to, I guess, withdraw funding from any of this garbage anywhere in the United States?
Well, within the federal government, and so the background there, President Trump issued an executive order that prohibited any federal funds from going to teaching critical race theory, teaching it to our soldiers or sailors or airmen or Marines, teaching it to civilian federal government employees, because you've had a lot of government agencies, including, unfortunately, the military, that bring in these training outfits that teach critical race theory, that try to divide people based on race. And so President Trump issued an executive order banning that. Joe Biden came to office, and one of the first things he did was repeal that Trump executive order. He wants this taught in the military. He wants this taught in the federal government, and it is wrong. So I've introduced legislation that says you cannot spend a penny of federal money teaching critical race theory within the federal government. It's not the job of the federal government to try to indoctrinate employees, to try to indoctrinate our fighting men and women. It's the job of the federal government to carry out their responsibilities when it comes to the military to keep us safe and defend this nation.
I don't know if Joe Biden even wants this. I believe he's told what he wants, because he even said himself, America is not a racist country. And that's exactly the opposite of what critical race theory actually teaches. Yeah. You saw the president out this week, I believe on Wednesday, talking about the rise in violent crime. He ignored all of the things that his own party that have triggered this rise in crime: bail reform, soft DAs, defund the police, and all he wants to talk about is guns. Senator, do you think he even gets it?
No, I think today's Democratic Party, when it comes to crime, this party is a party of interest groups, of radical interest groups. And so when it comes to crime, this Democratic Party is the party of the criminals, of murderers and rapists and child molesters. You know, you look at what they've done in the last 5 months. They've sent $1,400 stimulus checks to every criminal in America. Murderers currently in jail got federal taxpayer checks courtesy of Joe Biden. They want every felon in America to vote. They want to strike down every law that prohibits felons from voting. And their approach to this, it doesn't make any sense. You want to know where crime comes from? It comes from the criminals. Stop supporting policies that let violent criminals out early. Stop supporting policies that undermine the police. Abolish the police. You know, Jesse, 2 of the top officials in the Biden Justice Department are among the leading advocates for abolishing the police. Biden appointed them, Every single Senate Democrat voted to confirm them. And when you undermine the police, when you make it impossible for them to do the jobs, what happens is what's happening now. Murder rates skyrocket, crime rates skyrocket. And what do Joe Biden and the Democrats want to do? They want to take away your guns. They want to take away the guns of law-abiding citizens and not go after the criminals. It's backwards. Go after the criminals and protect the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens.
I believe you even mentioned Kamala Harris. Joe Biden campaign members bailed out rioters last summer, and the left has always kind of romanticized violence. You go back to the 60s and the cop killers and all these people that I believe the Boston bomber was thrown on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine. There's always been that vein in the Democratic Party that has done this, and I think they've gone way, way overboard. Speaking of boards, the border, Kamala Harris, I guess she kind of went to the border. She went to El Paso, Texas, which I think is 800 miles from the Rio Grande Valley, where all the action is. I think it's about as far as New York is from Chicago. She was obviously under a lot of political pressure to go to the border. Do you think people are buying that this is actually going to do anything? I think it's kind of insulting all of our intelligence, Senator.
Well, it is. She gave in to the political pressure, and it's been 93 days since she was appointed in charge of the border crisis. 93 days ago. That's over 3 months. And in the whole time, she hadn't been to the border once. She ran everywhere else she could go. She went to the Canadian border, but not our southern border. Finally, after 93 days, she couldn't take the criticism. She said, all right, let's go to the border, but how far away can I get from the kids in cages? What she really wanted to avoid. Look, El Paso is a wonderful community. It's a vibrant border community, important city in Texas. But it's not the epicenter of the crisis. The epicenter of the crisis, as you said, is 800 miles away in the Rio Grande Valley. And the reason she didn't go to the Rio Grande Valley is that's where the Biden cages are. That's where you see cage after cage after cage of little boys and little girls on the floor, no beds, no mats, no cots, side by side, one after the other, wrapped in reflective emergency blankets. That's where you see facilities with a rate of COVID positivity of 10%. And what Kamala and Joe Biden desperately wanted to avoid is the TV cameras filming those kids in the Biden cages. So she went as far away as you can go in the state of Texas from where that was to say she went to the border. And even more fundamentally, Jesse, when she went to El Paso, I'm glad she finally went to the border. She had no solutions. She had no answers. She has caused this problem. Joe Biden has caused this problem. 3 decisions they made caused this problem. On day one, Biden halted building the border wall. On day one, he reinstated the failed catch and release policy. And on day one, he ripped to shreds the incredibly successful Remain in Mexico policy, which had produced the lowest rate of illegal immigration in 45 years. It was working. And then Biden and Harris came in and screwed it up. And now they have no solutions. And the reason is that they've given in to the radical activists. All these issues, Jesse, are actually tied together. On the border, they've handed their agenda to the radical left activists who want open borders and not to enforce the border. On guns, they've given in to the radical leftist activists who want to abolish the police and confiscate our guns. And on critical race theory, they've given in to the radical activists who want to teach us the Marxist theories that America is inherently racist, and they want to divide us on racial lines and pit us against each other. All of this is really dangerous for our country.
And it's everything we said during the campaign, that he was a puppet of the far left, and we couldn't have said it any more clear. And I think there's politics involved too, Senator. You're right, it's optics. She doesn't want to go down to where the action is because she doesn't want to get photographed standing next to cages, standing next to Border Patrol, because she wants to run for president one day herself. And she doesn't want those images out there so someone maybe like AOC or someone from even the far left can point to those pictures and say, hey, you're associated with that. That's on you. So she's afraid. All right, Senator, great talking with you as always. Senator Ted Cruz from the great state of Texas.
Thank you, Jesse. Appreciate it.
Crimes. Former Philadelphia detective Nick Gerace. All right, Nick, this is a situation. There was a beef over campaign paraphernalia, some Punk came up, tried to tear some signs down. The staffer got in his face. Next thing you know, they're rolling around the sidewalk and he's getting stabbed with an ice pick. I've always said, I'm sure you agree, you don't really pick fights with people that have nothing to lose. Is that one of these situations?
Absolutely. It's better off you walk away from situations like this, find yourself a police officer. But because of the policies of these radicals in office, like New York here, you have violent crime up like 75%. Transit incidents in New York City are up 93%. And, you know, what's going to happen? This guy is going to stab this individual. If he does get caught and there are cops around to arrest him, he's going to be brought in, processed real quick, be told that he's a victim, given Knicks tickets or Yankees tickets, you know, some gift cards, and sent on his way.
Yeah,
so there's really is a,
they don't even have any bail for something like this, and there's really no way to defend yourself against an ice pick attack. I'm sure you agree with that. There's another pretty disturbing video we wanted you to analyze. This is out of Chicago. A couple, Giovanni Arzuga and Yasmin Perez, lovebirds, little fender bender, just minor accident. Next thing you know, they just have a gang of people pull these two out of the car and shoot them dead at point blank range.
It's absolutely horrific. I mean, it's a hate killing, and, you know, the mainstream media will not label it what it is. You know, it's unfortunate these two individuals who, 23, 24 years old, from all accounts, absolutely in love, two small children at home, made a wrong turn, went into a bad neighborhood, got into an accident, and because they were displaying the Puerto Rican flag, which they're coming from the Puerto Rican Day Parade, in the wrong area, they were killed for being Puerto Rican. And that troglodyte Lightfoot, you know, crawled out from under her bridge and, you know, gave a press conference only because this horrific act of violence was caught on camera. I mean, you know, we had 52 people in Chicago shot last weekend, 2 mass shootings, homicides are up 50%. They would have just fell, you know, into the wayside and just been another statistic if it wasn't caught on camera. And she had to come out and say something. It's her foul policies. I mean, they have a no foot pursuit policy in place right now with the police department. These criminals know what's going on. It's a mob mentality. It's there all the time because it's lawlessness. And they know what's going on. And you have another George Soros-backed district attorney, Kim Foxx, who don't prosecute crimes. The criminals know what's going on. You know, they pulled this young couple out and executed them because they were Puerto Rican. They know they can get away with it. There's no cops on the streets anymore. There's no proactive policing. It's all reactive because of what's going on. And you can't blame the police officers for this.
And you never want to ever open your door in a situation like that. You got to keep the windows up. You got to keep the car locked. And if you have to, you got to speed out of the way. I don't know how they were able to get pulled out of there. And I do agree with you. It is a hate crime if you think about it. If it's black on Puerto Rican, there's got the flag there. The parade is in town that day. We got to learn more about it. But on the surface, that does bear those motives. Lastly, Springfield, Massachusetts, I mean, not a bad area. I believe they have the NBA Hall of Fame there. You have a guy, Jose Martinez, 43 years old. He's
politicians and the higher brass and police departments, so let's face it, they are politicians themselves, not backing police officers. They're doxing when cops get into shootings, and most of them are justified and lawful. Being tried for murder, police officers are afraid to take the required action. I mean, this video should be taught in police academies on how not to encounter an armed suspect such as this guy Jose, clearly in a mental condition. But he just fired off 5 rounds. Thank God he didn't have the other magazine or the capacity to reload that weapon. But the officers there, I would like to know what they're thinking.
I do too.
I'm afraid that this climate is making these cops not take the action that they should take or use the tools or the weapons that they have. And I think police officers are going to get hurt. They have gotten hurt. And this incident, it could have ended really badly.
I agree. It looked like suicide by cop to me. That's what the guy was asking for. I just don't know how. I don't know how that thing unfolded. It's just unbelievable. All right, Nick, thank you so much for your expertise. We'll have you back on our next Crime Watch segment.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Free Britney.
The people who did that to me should not be able to walk away so easily. I was on tour in 2018. I was forced to do. After I said no to Vegas, my therapist sat me down in a room. Immediately the next day put me on lithium. There were 6 different nurses in my homes, and they wouldn't let me get in my car to go anywhere for a month. Not only did my family not do a goddamn thing, my dad was all for it. I worked 7 days a week, no days off. They watched me changed every day, naked, morning, noon, and night. My body, I had no privacy door for my room. I gave 8 gallons of blood a week. I want to be able to get married and have a baby, have a ID inside of myself right now so I don't get pregnant.
Bombshell testimony from Britney Spears detailing abuse and exploitation as she begs the court for freedom. The pop star ending years of silence and blasting this court-ordered conservatorship she's been forced to live under by her own father. Jamie Spears has had control of her $60 million fortune since 2008, following that mental health and substance abuse struggle, which we all saw play out on TV. Britney now says she's been lying this whole time and she's not okay. I spoke to a Britney Spears insider who spent years by her side during this conservatorship, and here is what he said. Britney's father used to be a cook who had a drinking problem. Now he oversees a multi-million-dollar empire. He doesn't want it to let it go. At first, Britney needed help. She had problems and people were taking advantage of her. But the custodianship was supposed to be temporary. They used her kids against her. Go on tour or you can't see your kids. They blackmailed her. She pays for both teams of lawyers. Her lawyers are court appointed, so they've stepped in money. It's in the financial interest of all the lawyers to keep the custodianship going. Everyone is getting paid except Britney. She's clearly not incapacitated. All she wants is a family and a normal life. So what happens now? Joining me to discuss, celebrity attorney Mark Garriga. So Mark, you're seeing the woman beg the court for freedom. She said they've stuffed an IUD inside her. They watch her change naked. They don't let her leave the house. She can't get married. They take her blood. They force her into these institutions. Have you ever seen anything as harsh as this? Because clearly she's not incapacitated. She's going on tour and doing Vegas shows.
Look, the conservatorship rules in California were originally designed and are in application are supposed to be for somebody who's got dementia or somebody who's in their waning days and can't manage their affairs. It's not supposed to be what we have here. I mean, this is but for the transparency of this, you'd have to wonder to yourself, why is it that Britney Spears, who is apparently got the capabilities to earn tens of millions of dollars under a conservatorship, yet 13 miles down the road at the Venice Beach, you've got an encampment that's an outdoor insane asylum, and nobody, the police, nobody else says that they've got anything at their disposal in order to put a conservatorship on those people. It's clearly the insider that you talked to is spot on. Where there is this amount of money, people are not going to let go. I mean, that's part of the problem.
That's a good point, because you can't institutionalize some deranged maniac that's destroying the streets. You institutionalize a platinum-selling pop star and basically hold her into this financial straitjacket and bleed her dry of all her cash and don't let her out. And it looks to me like a catch-22. If she says, I'm fine, I'm not going to another institution, they say, oh, you're being uncooperative and you need to stay in this deal. Or if she goes and talks to these people into the institution, she says she's upset, she says she's angry and depressed because she's being controlled, and then that justifies them keeping her because she's not well. I don't see how she gets out of this. How does she get out of this? Because this looks like modern day slavery done by creepy lawyers, if you want my true opinion.
Well, I think part of what's going to happen is it's like anything else. Once there's transparency or sunshine on this, you're going to see that nobody's going to allow this to continue. One of the things that I thought was most remarkable is what you just referred to with the IUD. I looked, and there is a code section that allows for that, but it's just astonishing to me that in this day and age, I mean, this, when it was approved by the U.S. Supreme Court and hasn't been overturned almost 100 years ago. But can you imagine the idea that a woman who is out there performing on the road, doing 100 or 200 shows a year, including the Las Vegas residency, is being forced to have an IUD when she doesn't want it? It's reminiscent or smacks of forced sterilization of the disabled. The other problem here is this has exposed the real problems with the conservatorship law, because I say that what this exposes is if you've got money, you're susceptible to this. Remember Casey Kasem and his fight, or the fight over him. Remember B.B. King. Remember just most recently Stan Lee of Marvel. And it's almost always in that situation where there's a large estate, a large amount of money, but they're at end of life. It's rare to ever see it at this stage of life with somebody who is performing. And by the way, in response to the family members who say we want our privacy, this is a family matter, that's fine. Then don't put her out on the road 200 days a year and monopolize on it.
Yeah, they pounced on her like vultures, and they're just feeding and feeding at her carcass, and all she wants is a baby and a husband. I've never seen anything like this. And like you said, this is usually used for people in late stages of life, not in their prime. All right, Mark Geragos, attorney to the stars. Thanks for joining Water's World.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Remember the pedophile to you from 30 feet above.
Okay, all right.
All right, so we also have Major League pitchers. They're getting checked for sticky substances.
Right.
Have you ever been checked for sticky substances, Will?
I'm going to take the fifth on that one.
What are they doing here? Because this guy all of a sudden just drops trow in the middle of the diamond. He's had it.
All right, so pitchers are using anything, sunscreen, hair gel, spider tack, and hiding it in their hats, their belt, wherever they can find it to get grip on the ball. If they can get grip on the ball, they spin the ball faster, and then it's harder to hit. Okay. And by the way, baseball, historic low batting averages. So they have a crisis on their hands.
So they think something's fishy.
And they're frisking the pitchers.
They're frisking the pitchers. Hair gel. I'd be a great pitcher in these days. Whoop, there it goes. All right. Big scandal. Do you remember the Jared from Subway scandal that rocked Subway? Yeah. Everybody remembers the pedophile. He was the pitchman. There's a new scandal with Subway. There's a class action lawsuit. They're saying there is no tuna in the tuna subs. And not only that, I think the Times ran a lab test and came back with these results. There was no evidence of any tuna DNA inside the Subway tuna sub.
This is certainly on par with Jared's scandal.
This is not really on par, but we're going to go with it. Take a bite of that.
So you're telling me there's no tuna?
There is no actual tuna fish
here
in that sandwich. You're going to take a bite and tell me.
I'm not going to taste anything through the onions.
There is no discernible tuna, according to the New York Times lab tests. It tastes like tuna. It tastes like tuna. You know, I'm going to try a little here. I'm not going to dive in like you did. I'm going to just do a little bit. I don't want to look like a politician eating on camera.
Don't take a feminine bite. Let me outdo you like that.
No, does anybody have a knife and fork, please?
What do you think?
It tastes like tuna to me.
Is it like crab with a K?
You know? Yes.
Is that what that is?
For those of you who don't eat sushi because we're not an elitist like Will, if you go to a lowbrow sushi restaurant, they don't actually put real crab. It's crab with a K.
Right. It's not the elitist that eats lowbrow sushi.
A Manhattan elitist.
Right.
So this is how they spin it. This is tuna-like substance. Mm-hmm. It tastes like a hair gel. Maybe the pitchers are putting this in their belts.
Maybe this could be working as a sticky stuff. I want to know what the damages will be. Should this lawsuit and this fraud suit and this investigation come back negative on Subway, what do they owe us?
I'm thinking we join the class action because we got to afford our hovercrafts, right?
Deal.
All right, it's a deal. We're joining. Thank you, Will.
Thank you.
We're defunding the police?
No, I do not.
Why not?
I don't want to live in a third world country.